Hello, everyone. This is Reb Brad, and you're listening to the Soccer Chaplains United podcast, From the Touchline. Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, once said, "The fight is won or lost far away from witnesses. Behind the lines, in the gym, and out there on the road, long before I dance under those lights." Well, Ali was right, and today on the podcast, we're going to look a little bit into what preseason looks like for a professional footballer. And we have a special guest to give us insight on that very thing today on the pod. So don't go anywhere. We talk about powering through preseason with midfielder Dillon Powers right after this.
He's found the space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're on the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Hello, everyone. Today I've got a special guest and friend, Dillon Powers, with me. Welcome to the podcast, Dill.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, a fun little tidbit. We're recording this on Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Dillon, it's your birthday, and I'm just curious, what's it like to have your birthday on Valentine's Day? What's it been like for you? I mean, you had to live your whole life this way.
Yeah. Well, I've known no other way, but I would say that it's always felt a little bit special because everyone usually remembers it because it's pretty easy to remember in conjunction with the holiday. And as I've gotten older, it's been nice because it's taken a lot of the pressure off of Valentine's Day for me personally, of like really coming through with, the elaborate flowers or the perfect dinner date. So now actually my wife Nina and I, we push Valentine's Day 6 months down the road to make way for my birthday, so that then we have an August 14th Valentine's Day where we can get any dinner reservation we want, and flowers are cheaper, and and we can celebrate my birthday. So
that's brilliant. I think I'm going to go home tonight and ask my wife if we can push Valentine's 6 months down the road and see if that would help.
She might ask for 2 Valentine's Day.
Actually, August 11 is our anniversary, so then I can like double dip there a little bit and just kind of put a little bit extra. Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks for that insight. And, it's funny too, because I tried getting John Berner on the pod with you as well. He shares a Valentine's Day birthday. So I think that's pretty fun, and it's always good to have a birthday buddy as well. So we'll probably, Berner, if you're listening, we'll probably share some stories about you, even though you're not here. So, and just have some fun at your expense. So, but, Dillon, hey, in a few short minutes, some folks may or may not know your story. Give us your soccer background, your career. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you start playing? What did playing soccer look like for you? What got you your start? Why soccer? Why not any other traditional American sport? And just give us a little bit of rundown on some of those things.
Yeah. Well, some people don't know this, but I grew up in a soccer household. My dad played professional soccer in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and mostly in the indoor circuit.
Was that the MISL?
MISL. It might have been the CISL at one point too.
Okay.
But that's kind of what I grew up in, was like this kind of the heyday of indoor soccer where, they're selling out stadiums of, like basketball arenas basically. And they were these really exciting, high scoring games to go to, and with songs and dancing and all types of stuff. So I've heard some stories about this day. I've heard about guys chugging beers in the locker room at halftime, and it was just sort of I don't know if that was your dad, but I've heard some colorful stories at times about sort of the entertainment culture around indoor soccer league. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of entertainment culture, and as a kid, I was very easily entertained by that and kind of fell in love with the sport through that kind of I guess that medium. And so that I was kind of hooked from a young age. Like, I'm not going to say I was brainwashed into playing soccer, but I was never going to play anything else, like realistically. And the home videos really proved that. So I was really fortunate to like have that upbringing, and my dad was also a youth coach, so like he kind of helped me along and was for the majority of my youth career was like my coach, which I think could have gone one of two ways. Like I think you hear stories of like overbearing and over challenging ex players that are trying to get their live through their kids again. And my dad was very good about like asking me questions, really nurturing my development in like a at my own pace type of way, which I'm extremely thankful for, because I think he could have easily, led me astray and led me, or at least like turn me off to the game. So that was kind of like the context. That I grew up in Texas, which is Dallas, Texas has a pretty good, soccer scene. And so I was challenged. I was able to kind of, play up in some age groups to really foster my development, and had some early success with the youth national teams that really exposed me to a lot of good competition, and a lot of challenges too, like of all of a sudden being the best in your team, and then all of this, and then going from that to like feeling like I'm not cutting it here, and like what are people going to think of me back home, and all the kind of identity stuff that starts at that age that does you kind of carry that baggage with you through your entire career. So that's kind of how my youth career developed, and I decided to go to Notre Dame for college, and that was also kind of a very formative experience. I got to play under Bobby Clark, who was a really quality college soccer coach who was really more than a coach to a lot of people. So that was a very special experience to play under him.
Now tell us about Notre Dame, because was the academy culture in Texas, was that quite formed yet where that was a strong opportunity for you, or did Notre Dame feel like the next best step?
I think that like my senior year was like the first year of academy, like they introduced the academy system, and it was pretty rare to like jump straight from high school to the profession. The links between the professional teams and the academies were kind of almost just, I don't know, in name only.
Sure.
So really the path always seemed to be at least like a year of college. And even I remember telling my parents, like, I just want to play a year. I want to go pro. I was definitely like wanting to get on with my professional career, because that's, being in the youth national teams, that's what everyone's talking about. And that's kind of what's stimulating everything. But I find myself at Notre Dame, and I'm extremely thankful for that happened. And, I don't know exactly how I ended up there. I think I fell in love with, the campus, and was really sold on the values that Bobby Clark, cared about. And, and I had a good friend going there who I ended up playing with at the Rapids, Grant Van Castile. So that kind of helped. But, yeah, my time there was really special, because I think I tell people a lot that like I got to experience being a young player on a team, and a middle of the road player, and then like a leader on a team too, which a lot of younger kids in the academy who kind of go straight to the professional environment, it's easy to get like pigeonholed as that young kid. And I think it was nice for me to have the experience of taking ownership of a team, and really feeling the personal responsibility to kind of lead by example.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you mentioning Bobby and Grant as well reminds me, Greg Dalby was an assistant coach with Notre Dame as well, and he had some time with Rapids, and he and I have a good friendship. He just got the head coach job in Oregon. So it's kind of, for those that don't know, it is a small world, and it's a family, and sometimes family get along and sometimes family don't, but it's really unique in that how interconnected and close and tight it is. So Notre Dame, you go on, you get drafted by Colorado Rapids. That's how you and I met. Yeah, talk about that experience. I forget where draft day was. Was that 2013?
Yeah, that was right.
Is that Baltimore? Or was it? Usually it's in a cold place, but
it might have been like Indianapolis or something.
oh yeah, you might be right there. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I can't really remember, but yeah, it was that whole experience is kind of surreal, like kind of like felt like a dream, and I didn't like it, like not knowing where I was going to end up, and then finally getting chosen by the Rapids and having home was nice. And I had a kind of a previous history with Oscar Pareja, who was our first coach there, being from Dallas, and knowing him from playing against him, some of his teams, some of his youth teams, and he, that's I think one of the reasons he brought me along, because I gave him fits in the Dallas area.
He had his eye on you.
Yeah, he was tired of losing to me, so he decided to have me join the team. But that was, my first year was like, it was such an interesting experience. Like, just one, being paid to play soccer officially, and that being my livelihood, and like going from like a college program where it feels like very much about the team and like collective goals, to like all of a sudden, like, yeah, we're on a team, but we're all individuals fighting for our jobs and our lives. Like, there's this ruthlessness to the professional game that I think that's one of the biggest changes, I think, as you progress through the sport, is like all of a sudden there is this nature to it that, like, okay, this is a sport and it's something I love, but at the same time, this is a job, this is real. And that's when you see that kind of the competitive level just like ramp up, a lot. So
would you, yeah, real quick, would you say, did that competitive shift, that change, did that take away the joy of the game for you? I imagine that affects people at different levels, and maybe to a certain degree it took some of that away, but what would you say to your love of the game? Was it harder, or did that come on the longer you were in the pros, longer you've been in the pros? How did that feel for you?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because I think a lot of guys struggle with it. I think it does take away from your general enjoyment of the game, because you just feel a pressure to perform. And so when, maybe growing up, it is a little bit more about the flair and the feeling and the passion, and then it starts to get weighted a little bit more towards performance and results. And when that comes in, it's very natural to like to value less your enjoyment, and be like, okay, I got to get it done, because if not, I'm not going to be playing. If not, I'm not going to have a job next year, and I'm not going to be in this sport. And it's kind of that's how it affected me. I don't know. I imagine that's not everyone's experience, but I remember from an early age, like professionally, it's like I felt that, and I also felt a lot of anxiety around, just that element, like of like every single day, I had to show up, and every single touch felt like it was determinant of what would happen in the weekend, or if I would get selected for the team. And so I think initially there was a little bit of like a response that I had that was like, it was kind of tough to manage and balance. And as you kind of go throughout your career, you start to understand that like you have to bring some of that enjoyment back, and sometimes you kind of have to like kind of cultivate it, like, because it might not be as natural. At least this is my own experience, obviously. But there's been times where it's like you have to remind yourself to enjoy the game, because the realities and the pressures of results can really start to get heavy.
What are some of the ways that you were intentional, or you've striven to be intentional? You've grown through that intentionality to get to that point where you get back some of that feeling of enjoyment and love and passion that maybe has to be cultivated differently in the pro environment?
I've always been like try to be very intentional about how I show up to training, and at some point it almost becomes a necessity because whether it's burnout or it can, to not have any enjoyment in your game can actually hinder your performance, which is the irony of it. Um, I remember one preseason, I think it was like 2017. So this would have been like 4 years into my career, maybe five. And I remember I was like, okay, like I felt a little bit like burnt out and like felt like I didn't have that kind of. I needed something else. I needed a different fuel source. I needed to get more in touch with that love. And I remember going into preseason and be like, all right, two things. My intention is like I want to be I want to be the hardest working player on the field, and I want to enjoy myself. Like that's it. That is it. Instead of like, I would have otherwise I would have gone out there and been like, like with different intentions, maybe more technical, tactical, or like performance based, like, I want to score in this session or blah blah blah. But like I remember going into that preseason keeping it very simple and being like, I want to work hard and I want to just enjoy it. And it was like it was fantastic. Like I remember not only was I felt like I playing at the top of my game, like I was like having such a great time. And like that was like a special kind of experience for me. But I will say it really only lasted into preseason and then like into a little bit into the season because then results come back in and performance and oh shoot, like I'm not playing this weekend. I got dropped from the team. Oh, I might be traded. Like, and then it's like this is where the heaviness of the game comes back in. So I feel like cultivating that in a long-term way is very challenging. And sometimes it's as simple as playing with, just like having a laugh with your teammates, enjoying that part of it, enjoying the banter, or just like being out and reminding yourself like about the concept of play, just like maybe not between the lines or like during the whistle, but let me just like play like I do it as a kid,
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that, that relational impact with your teammates. I remember 2016, the team vibe with Rapids was just really tight. I mean, guys were barbecuing together. They were playing golf. They were spending time together off the pitch. And there was just this relational depth. And I remember telling, I think it was Pablo, I remember, hey, this feels a lot like 2010 when the team won the championship. So I wonder how much of that 2017, you're coming off a great year, really. Didn't quite get to where you wanted to, I'm sure, but 2017 coming off and coming into preseason, that feels that. And I've noticed with the teams that I've served in the years when people were more relaxed and spending time together, just felt like the club was doing well. And has that been your experience in the other teams that you've played with before too?
100%. 100%. I think.
How do you coach that? How do you get that right? Like, I think that's a big challenge, as you said.
I don't like. I kind of think that's on the players a little bit, and I think the club can maybe do things to foster that, like by making connections. Because there is this like one of the challenges is there's players in, there's players out every year. Like there's not this perfect continuity, which would I think make things easier, but it's about having the right people on the bus. And then I think as a group, you have to be intentional about that and understand that the better relationships you have off the field, it makes a difference on the field. And I think people don't respect that concept enough. I don't think it's talked about enough from like, we talk about X's and O's all the time, but we don't talk about chemistry. We talk about on the field chemistry, but we don't talk about how off the field chemistry affects on the field chemistry. And I remember one of my coaches, James O'Connor in Orlando, he kind of harped on this point a little bit. And he's like, I think he was talking about his time in England. Like he played with a guy in the midfield, him and the other guy were like really good friends. And there was this other guy who that came on, and his friend was kind of like standoffish to him. He didn't want him kind of to ruin that with the thing they had. And James said like he still decided to cultivate a relationship with this other guy. And when him and this new guy played together, they were able to work well together where the other two weren't. And because of that, they were able to like, stay on the field and, find a partnership together. And I think that story, hearing that and my own experiences made me understand that even if like, you have a natural fit with some guys and you don't necessarily with others, but like there's always common ground to find, and just spending time together, I think can help that process. So what I've tried to do everywhere I've been is to, as much as I can, like foster that within my individual relationships, but like trying to get guys together to just be together. And that's something I'm actively doing right now with a lot of new players here in Orange County.
Nice. So you're playing Orange County Blues. This is how many years have you played with them?
Well, it's Orange County Soccer Club now, since
Okay.
they changed names several years ago. I've played. I came into the Orange County Soccer Club in 2021 summer after some time in Scotland, and I played the rest of the season with them in 2021. It was a championship season, so it was kind of a special run. And then I did not re-sign with the team, and I came back the following summer, halfway through the year, which was last summer. So I've been on the team a collective, or like a total of 1 year, but kind of two different stints. And
Okay.
I'm still, continued on past last year. And this isn't the first time I've actually been in the door for preseason and kind of at the start of things. So it's kind of nice to feel like I'm a part of it from the very start, to be able to, start to make those inroads and be a connector of the team.
Nice. We're going to touch into preseason a little bit more. You've already said a few really helpful things, I think. But Dillon, give us a sense of, in the span of your career up to now, what are some special moments or memories? And you're like, I'm going to treasure this. I'm holding on to this. This helps me get through a preseason grind. Is this moment? I reflect back to it. It gives me maybe some energy to put my boots on one more time and trudge through something that's challenging or difficult. What would you say? Is there anything like that you kind of mentally, emotionally kind of hold on to, and you're like, yeah, that was a special moment, special time?
Like a special time in my career that kind of
Sure.
like hold on to. I do remember like there's been a few times where I remember one time particularly in Colorado, and I think it was either preseason or early season, and we were training on the game field, and it was a nice Colorado day. Sun was out, but it was cool. And like we're kind of in our sleeveless, and I was just like, this is just really like coming out here, exercising our bodies. Like I'm around a bunch of guys that I love. Like this is like really special. Like I'm thankful for this this moment. And so like I guess it's gratitude that is one thing that has been a very kind of a source of sustainment or sustaining me in my career. And I think back to moments like that, and sometimes I'm able to, put a quick pause on what's actually happening and just kind of look around and just be like, have these moments of gratitude, or maybe they're even grace, and to just be like, you know what, like this is, I'm happy to be out here, and I'm happy to kind of, there could be a lot worse places to be. And so that's kind of a special thing, just to be out on the grass, breathing, playing. Like I definitely feel that sense of gratitude, and sometimes that gets lost, and sometimes it's more prevalent than others. But that's a special.
Dill, if you were to rank gratitude, maybe we could say some mindfulness exercise or grace, as you even use that word. If you were to rank that in terms of the complements to a person's game, right? You have technical side, you have tactics side, of course, there's physical, athletic ability. But if you were to put gratitude in there, like what would you say to a younger player in the game today? And you would say, hey, start at this place to implement this a practice of gratitude. Like what is that for you? Because it sounds like you've encountered this later on, right? Did you have gratitude moments playing, in Texas as a young kid and then Notre Dame, or when did gratitude really come into the picture for you?
Honestly, probably not till like later, like maybe either at the start of my professional career or after, when I probably read a book or two that kind of made me appreciate the concept of it more, and maybe learned about the science that backs up how powerful gratitude is. And I've always, like, when you really get connected to it, to whether it's through a moment that happens to you, or whether it's through an intentional practice in the morning, or when you have some quiet time, like, it's an antidote to anything bad that you're feeling. And I think it can be, because of that, it's like it's such a powerful and desirable feeling to get in touch with. But I think sometimes we get too distracted in our day, or we're too rushed, that we don't slow down enough to really just take even like 10 seconds to just be like, thank you. And so I guess I've learned that practice a little bit over time, and I think it's a little bit more retrievable for me. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I can get a bit disconnected from gratitude, and that's when I know maybe I'm a bit out of line. But for me, gratitude can be it's a superpower, honestly, because it's not just for that, but there's one other, like, I think there's also, it can be used as well, like when you're struggling, when you're out of the form, out of the team, to just be like, you know what, like, thank you for, like, you can kind of count your blessings, but also like you can look at, like, I remember, like, this one of my good friends, he's like a yoga teacher, and he leads a lot of retreats and stuff from Denver. His name's Billy Potoknik. He would always, like, I'd be in his classes, and he would just say, thank you, bless you, thank you, bless you, and just like cultivate this sense of gratitude for everything that's coming in, good and bad. It's like, okay, bad stuff comes, all right, thank you, like, okay, it's a part of my experience, like, I can take that in, I can learn from it, like, this is here for a reason. And I think if you kind of have that, that's more of like the attitude of gratitude, which is more of like a overarching kind of how your perspective on life. And I think that's been helpful in times when I've been like struggling and really down on, oh, I'm not playing or whatever. And that has been very sustaining. It's huge, honestly.
Yeah, it can feel kind of counterintuitive to be thankful in the midst of trial and adversity, but as you said, it shapes us, it forms us. Sometimes we grow best in the midst of those moments. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Well, part of the title of today's podcast was, powering through preseason, pun intended, but you're giving us some great tools, Dillon, to not only power through a preseason grind, but also life, the season of life and the things that we go through. Dill, for those that don't know, positionally, where do you normally slot into the lineup? Where do you normally play? And, how'd you grow into that?
Well, I started my career as a attacking midfielder, and then I became a box-to-box midfielder, and now I'm a defensive midfielder. So I'll be a center back by next year, probably. Just moving back the way.
Moving back. But pretty soon a goalkeeper. No. Shout out to Burner.
I've always been in the center of midfield in some capacity. And it's a great position. you see a lot of the ball, you're active in everything, and it's challenging, cerebral position. You got to be always thinking ahead. You got to have good ball skills. You got to do both sides of the game. So it's it's a great position.
So if I'm right, and I'm a chaplain, everyone, I'm not a coach, I'm not like a tactician. You've been an 8 and a 10 and a 6. Have I got the numbers right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is there something else am I missing? Were you like a 7's a little bit more active on the wing, right? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, in Colorado, I did play a little bit on the wings, but I would say like I'm traditionally more of a 6, 8, or 10.
Okay. What would you say, Dill, are the good necessary traits of being in the middle of the park that way, and kind of like, you could break it down by position, or you could just say some generalized things. You got to be skilled. You got to be good at that. You already talked about seeing the ball a lot, but what are some of those you'd say, man, for someone that wants to play in there, I've noticed that these are the things to really work on in your game and kind of cultivate as a player technically or tactically.
I mentioned one of them already, but I think it's the biggest one for me is thinking ahead, like reading the game, before the ball comes to you. What's the picture look like around you, and what are you going to do with the ball, or do you have a general sense of what's next? So that's huge. That goes around the whole pitch, but I think especially in the midfield. And then just like I think awareness, like spatial awareness, positional awareness, like one of the big kind of leaps in my career in terms of like effectiveness for me was like when I started to not just see the picture that I was in from a 5, like the circle around me from a 10-yard perspective, but like where am I at in the scheme of the entire pitch, and what is where am I at in terms of how all the players on the field are balanced, and where does the ball need to go from the macro kind of perspective. So that's maybe something that helped me quite a bit. And then communication, that's one that especially has come on later in my career, which was I've never been like a really loud person. I've got a soft voice, but I was taught by coaches and players, it's just something you have to cultivate to really get your point across and to be effective, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You have to talk. You have to talk. And I think it's easy to go inside yourself as a player. And you almost know, like, when you're tired and things aren't going well, that's when you stop talking. And I think when you're, I even had one coach in Scotland who was like, he's like, I don't care if you don't know what to say, just commentate the game. Just say what you see, And I think that's helpful to just always be kind of talking, expressing yourself. So that's something I would say too, communication.
Dill, who would you say in today's modern game emulates kind of that midfielder, like, or is there someone you've said, I'm striving, or I've striven to model my game after so and so? Who is that for you? Or maybe there's a couple names that come to mind.
There's quite a few. I mean, growing up, like, I always watched Xavi and Iniesta from Barcelona, which obviously they're not playing anymore, but they were just like so smart in like the thinking ahead aspect and knowing where they're at in the field and positionally. Luka Modric is an incredible player who I've watched a lot. I mean, there's so many good players that set such a different example. And I think the cool thing is that, like, they all have their own flavor. And I think finding your own flavor can be the challenge sometimes. Is like, we spend a lot of time emulating, and which is good. You have to do that to kind of learn. But I think one of the trickiest things is to really find the sweet spot of what feels right to you. So that's an ongoing process too.
Yeah, just a quick note too, or personal privilege here. I remember, I think it was your rookie year or maybe your sophomore year with us with Rapids. I have a few very distinct highlights in my mind, and I don't know where these come from, but I don't know if I saw some video or maybe it was an away game, because I have a very distinct image of seeing it through a camera lens. But you had a couple moments where you were kind of dancing on a ball and getting away from guys, turning them, and it just, I think it was that year you got MLS Rookie of the Year award, and I just remember thinking, man, this kid's gifted. Like it was a lot of fun to watch. So I have that real distinct memory of you, and I forget what game it was. You were kind of near a sideline, and people were closing you down, and you got away from like 2 or 3 guys, and it was really fun to watch. So it has been fun to watch. Maybe you don't have that highlight yourself in your mind, but something for us fan people, we get to have highlights of some of our favorite players. So, Dillon, you mentioned you and Nina got recently married. Tell me about some of those traits you just mentioned: awareness, communication, reading the game, reading the room. Like, how do those play into marriage? How do those play into relationship? I had to ask, right?
I mean, I'm laughing because like there's so many life and soccer they're not necessarily separate things. Like there's the same principles apply, and that's maybe throughout everything. But like I would say for us, communication, Nina and I, communication is massive. And we don't always get it right. And I think it's been, over the course of our relationship, we've been together maybe 9-10 years at this point. It's been a learning process of, okay, like how do we communicate with each other, and being clear and being open and expressing yourself in the way that you need to kind of get your point across, so that you're not harboring resentment, so that you can kind of really let the good stuff flow. Because there's stuff that comes up all the time that like will be a challenge to the relationship. She'll get angry at me, I'll get angry at her, and learning how to express that is really important. And I think she has different ways of doing it. She sometimes needs a little bit more time to process and to step away, and then re-enter to say, okay, this is what you did, or this is what I'm feeling like, and then I can respond. Or maybe for me, like I like to kind of go attack it head on and just be like, this is the way it is. Like I need help, or blah blah blah. And so that's something we value a ton. And I think as you live with somebody long enough, you really start to understand their kind of what makes them tick, or what doesn't, and how to really kind of cater to that. And like the thing is, like, we're all different, we have different love languages, we have different needs, and I guess part of the fun is like learning how to like optimally do that. But then like realistically, no one's ever going to get it perfect. So learning how to troubleshoot and problem solve becomes a part of the daily grind of being in a relationship. And I think it comes down to communication a lot.
Nice.
And then always coming back to the love, where is it at, and let that be it's always underneath it all the superficial problems or whatever that are going on. It's like, okay, like that's our common ground,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what kind of guides us.
For a minute, talk about preseason, because preseason can be pretty brutal for relationships and for a partner, a spouse. It can be, sometimes you're separated from them for weeks, months at a time. I imagine that makes communication that much more important. But what's the impact that you've seen over the years as you take on preseason? How does that affect your relationships and the other things that you, even as a person?
Yeah, it's a big energy suck, for lack of a better term. Like,
Hmm.
so I have less time to like, I'm so focused on like recovering and just like processing what happened physically that I just have less to give. And I think as the years have gone by, we've gotten better at understanding that that's probably going to happen. And even during the season to some extent, that there is going to be less to give, so we might have to get by with a little bit less for both of us. And um I think having that expectation a little bit of like imperfection, that some days like I'm not gonna be at I'm not even gonna be above 50, like.
Hmm.
But I think at least checking in with some sort of intentional moment, even if it's once a day,
Hmm.
like, even if it's at the very end of the day, like, you know, just being there with each other in the same kind of space, because it's easy, because maybe I'll be ready to connect, but she's onto her own thing and she's kind of not in that space and distracted. And I think to be able to not be distracted, set aside our full attention for each other at least once is really helpful. And I think it's kind of like I don't know, a starting place, I think, for this time of year.
Well, Dill, it's been great. You've given us some tools already: gratitude, communication, setting expectations, intentionality, rest. How important are all those tools for a preseason? And if we were adding to the tool belt or the tool box, you would say, hey, Brad, maybe there's a young pro, maybe there's an aspiring pro out there that's getting ready to enter into a new season, new challenge for themselves as their game progresses. Like, what would you say? Hey, add these things to the toolbox. These are pretty necessary to get through a preseason grind or even the season grind itself.
Yeah, I think having a little bit of time for yourself is important too. Like, that's not necessarily like soccer related or whatever, whether that's like a little bit of just like uh I guess you're kind of like rest ethic,
Hmm.
like we're working, and yeah, we'll go to sleep at night and that's rest. But I think finding a moment of like, whether it's for me, journaling's huge, or just taking a minute to put my feet in the grass and feel the sun, or watch the sunset, or go for a walk, just to kind of turn off the working brain for a little bit and kind of cultivate a little bit of rest.
Do you have any
That's
hobbies? Do you have any hobbies that you take on in season or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, I've got too many interests. Honestly, I feel like I wish I could be more proficient at one thing, but I can't. I just have like a little bit of like sampling right now. I I have a guitar. I play a little bit of guitar. I like to draw, journaling, um, singing, um, making music. Like, there's so many different things that kind of pique my interest, and even just like learning, like reading, about things that don't pertain to anything anything that like involves soccer, um, or that aren't necessarily productive. Like, so having that playtime, I think, is important, as I kind of mentioned earlier. Even like a video game too, just like turning off the brain. Like, I think it can really help you, when you re-enter back into things, be a better partner, be a better for yourself, like when you feel a little bit rejuvenated.
So I can ask you for the next podcast maybe to come up with a song and sing for us and do a little guitar number.
I guess I could probably make that happen. Maybe not the guitar. I'm pretty beginner, but I did my buddy and I did end up writing a song for Nina for our wedding, which is kind of fun. I performed
Oh,
it. Yeah,
nice.
you'll have to
Nice.
ask Burner how it went.
Yeah,
But
I will do that for sure.
Don't let him sing though. He's tone deaf.
We're going to get some footage too of that. And we're also going to get some of those family home videos that you mentioned earlier to just see the progression. I'm just curious where you're playing. I'm a little jealous, but what beach is your favorite beach to go put your feet in the sand and maybe get out in the surf a little bit?
Well, I'm in Newport Beach, so that one's the closest that I kind of frequent. But I'm kind of there's a nice state park called Crystal Cove, which is just down in between here and Laguna Beach. And it's a nice little getaway, whether it's you can go down to the beach, but you can also go up into the trails. And I did a lot of trail running this off season, and it was almost like kind of spiritual, some of the experiences up there, and just like looking out over the ocean, over the scenery. It's like it's a really special place.
Yeah, if I did not live in Denver, Colorado, I would be somewhere near San Diego. My grandparents grew up in Laguna Niguel, and I have great memories of being at the beach, in the ocean, body surfing, and a few years ago tried to do a little surfing with my daughters. I didn't do so well, but it's because I'm old. Dill, you mentioned too going on some preseason runs. How do you best prepare for preseason? Like what kind of powers you through? What kind of gets you ready or helps you transition from season intensity? There's a little bit of a period of rest and break, but how do you keep some maintenance there so that preseason's not so difficult when you get back into it?
I think that's the name of the game, is like maintenance. I think there's been times when I've really pushed to be like extremely fit going into preseason, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's an element of like, let me listen to where I'm at right now. And as I get older, it changes every year. Sometimes it feels like I need to push. Sometimes it feels like I just need to maintain. And this year felt like I wanted to use the training time in a different way. Like I did a lot of cross training. I did a lot of trail runs. I did swimming. I did some alternative types of weightlifting. And I think I was actually using the running to work through a lot of blockages I felt I had in my experiences of engaging with fatigue. And I had someone kind of helping me through that, one of my friends, and just going on runs with me, and we'd run, feel something come up, and we'd talk about it. I'd kind of feel it out, talk what's going through, and then okay, how do I re-enter in a different way if I can? Because people don't talk about the emotional side of the game a lot. We have a lot of emotions trapped in our bodies. We have a lot of emotional blockages that show up on the field. And so I wanted to use this off season to really challenge some of those. And some of mine really show up around how I deal with fatigue. Like how, when you're really pushing yourself, what does your body do? What's the response? And so I really used this off season to kind of tackle some of that. And it was very powerful.
Nice. Yeah. You're in this place still where a lot of younger players that I meet don't take into consideration the emotional side, how it affects the physical side, and vice versa, and even the spiritual side, how that can affect all of that. And there's between mindfulness, between some of the techniques you talked about, there's some grounding techniques and other things that as you mature as a player, you understand your body knows, right? And sometimes it takes us learning to listen well to our bodies, to understand our bodies differently. It seems like when you're younger, you can just press on and push through sometimes and ignore that. But you really have to learn to grow that and understand things better. So yeah, I'm a little jealous for Colorado. We got trails, but they usually have snow and other things on them. Mountain lions and bears and whatnot. But Well, Dill, thanks. You've given us, I think, a lot to think through, especially for those of you listening. You've got your own preseason that you're in or you're facing right now. I just want to thank you for that experience and just sharing that. And I'm just wondering, Dill, are you doing any sort of personal, professional coaching with, maybe there's a younger athlete or someone who's like, hey, I might like to learn a little bit from Dillon Powers. Are you doing any of that yourself right now, or are you just kind of focused in on the game and personal life right now?
Yeah, I do. I've got a few young players I connect with. I'm happy to connect with anyone. Have a couple programs I've developed with on the mental side of the game, really around maximizing your development, taking ownership of your development with one of my old teammates, Shane O'Neill, who you know. But always happy to chat about this type of stuff. So
yeah, I will. I'll put some contact details for you. We can get those after, and I'll put those in the podcast liner for the day. And if anyone wants to listen to this podcast, wants to get in and connect with Dillon Powers and maybe get some coaching or instruction or wisdom, I'll let them reach out to you. Well, we're going to transition now into a game that I like to play with folks coming on the podcast called Crosses with Rev. So, Dillon, here's what it is. It's 1 minute, and the timer doesn't start till I've asked the first question. Each question has it's designed to be quick fire. Like I'm serving a ball into you, and you're just really taking shots on goal, trying to get as many in the back of the net. There might be some controversial ones here, and you're like, I don't want to say anything, so I'm going to pass. You don't get any points for a pass. And there might be some ones that stump you a little bit. I've tried to do a little research. And there's a point value. So either ors or true and false are kind of 1 point. And then a short answer, there might be a few of those are worth 3. Currently 23 points is the leaderboard at the time. And we'll get some of your other teammates here playing this. So you might actually take the player leaderboard for the moment.
Is there right answers? Are there right answers?
For you, there will be right answers, and I'm just going to kind of keep track of these things. But there might be a little bit of a test for you. So, and if we don't get through them all, that's okay. I have more questions than there is time. So what I'm going to do is, when you're ready, how about I give you a taste of one? Let's just.
I would like. I don't know what I'm getting into, so I'd love it. I'd love it a little bit.
Okay, I'll throw out a generic one. Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Okay, so you pause for a minute to think. Like the quicker you can be on that, the better it'll go for you. And we'll get through some of these. If I run out, I might ask you that Messi or Ronaldo question again. Okay. Just in case. But I think I'm ready. I've got some good questions for you. All right.
Let's go.
You ready?
Ready.
All right. Fired up. Again, I'll start the timer after I ask the first question. Question 1. Left or right-footed?
Right.
My favorite football club is?
Liverpool.
Scotland or Ireland?
Ooh, Scotland.
Orlando City FC or Colorado Rapids?
Rapids.
Veganism or carnism?
Veganism.
Gatorade Player of the Year or MLS Rookie of the Year?
Ooh, MLS Rookie of the Year.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
MLS Western Conference Championship game or USL Championship?
USL Championship.
Dribble or pass or shoot?
Pass.
My favorite post-game meal is?
Chipotle.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Xbox or PlayStation?
Xbox.
442 or 451?
451.
Kindle or physical book?
Physical book, 100%.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, and that's it. All right. Well, I didn't get to any of the controversial ones. I was going to ask you Pablo or Pareja. That would have been a good one, right? What about 2013 or 2016?
16.
Okay. Ireland or Italy?
I've actually never been to Italy.
What?
I know. I've got an Italian passport.
How'd you get the Italian passport without being to Italy? You didn't have to go there one time? You know a guy.
Actually, the Ireland Scotland question was really tough. Also, I think I lied on the Coke Pepsi. I think I'm a Pepsi guy.
So I'm going to deduct you a point there because you lied.
That's fine.
That's all right. You actually did pretty good. I was going to ask you, California or Texas?
California. Sorry.
That's all right. I won't tell your parents. They probably won't listen to this podcast. One more, window or aisle?
Aisle. 100%.
Fun little game. Let me count you up here. $18 points, buddy. The leaderboard's 23, but you're the first amongst players, so you currently sit atop the leaderboard. And I don't know if Burner or Watsy will play this game, but you got a good run, and I will keep it really hard for them too. So, yeah, well done. It was fun. Oh no, actually 19 points. I had an extra question in there on the USL Championship. Yeah, 2016. I forget. 2016. Were you playing against, who do we lose to? Was it LA? No. Seattle. Where were you? I don't, all I remember is Gashi for some reason. And I remember who left the team that year from, he had come from Philadelphia, played just 1 year with us, Latu. Sebastian, I remember him. That was the last game he played for us. Like last time I saw him. Yeah. What was your memory of that night? That was a tough night. That was probably one of the more painful nights for me as a volunteer chaplain for Rapids.
I thought I actually played pretty well, and I thought, I was disappointed with our attacking group. I remember that day. I felt like I thought we were getting a lot of balls through the lines. I thought they were trying to play one touch too much, and we turned over a lot of balls and couldn't get much of an attacking rhythm. And then once the Sounders scored, I think we had to score 3 goals. So it was kind of killer. I think they scored early in the second half, and it was like, oh, because really it was like the away leg is what killed us, because we had I think we were up, or we had tied at 1-1 or something, and then we gave up a penalty and for them to win. Because if we had gone away and gotten a result 1-1 away, we could have drew 0-0 at home, I think.
Yeah, and gone through.
We didn't need to win the game or score 3 goals if we got scored on. So
I remember that night. It must have been before the goal. I looked over, Denny Castillo was there, and we looked at each other, and he's like, I think we're going to win this. Like there was this like sense of, maybe it's because there were quite a few balls into the final third, even though we weren't connecting on them. And Denny just had a feeling, and I was hopeful. But I remember, watching that first away leg, feeling just like, oh, and I remember being frustrated. I've been around MLS long enough. I was frustrated. I was like, why do we start on the road? Like, start at home and then go. Like, I felt like something. Every playoff, I have something about how MLS does their playoffs that frustrates me. But that was one of them that year for sure. Because I was like, if we had started at home, different story. But that was a fun year. Well, Dillon, if you don't mind, I want to end tonight's pod, today with a blessing for everyone kind of undertaking preseason preparation right now. So, blessing for coaches and athletes and the team staff, front office staff. So, I'm just going to kind of close it up that way, if that's cool with you.
Please.
God, the thrill of a new year, the potential of a new season. Bless now the preparations that are underway. Strengthen heart, mind, body, and soul to ready for the challenge and the time that lies ahead. Bless each blade of grass bent under the striving of athletes. Bless each whiteboard of strategy and tactic sheet. May they stay intact. Bless each ticket sold and competition spectated. Protect bodies from injury. Protect minds from mental strain and fatigue. Protect hearts from discouragement and fear. Bless each one, no matter what role. For the athletes, great and small. For coaches, confident or new. For training staff with their hands of healing. For team staff, their organization and support. May each one power through preseason with your strength and power into the bountiful opportunity of the season ahead. Amen. Dillon, thanks for joining me. Real pleasure to have you on, and we'll definitely have to get Burner and Watsy in and get a little bit more banter for next time. So.
Yeah, we did it.
That's great. Well, everyone, this has been Rev Brad and Dillon Powers coming to you from the Touchline.